Okay, lovely people, let's talk about the back wall still, and let's talk about bottom steel and top steel. Even though it doesn't present as top steel in a lot of the imagery we see, it's public across the top of the back wall here between the floor, the structural floor slab. It appears that the top steel is there. It is there, and when it goes down, it fractures the top part. It helps pull over the top part of that concrete that's up here that we see presents as not present. Hold on, let me do this. All right, so here's the kicker, right there, right there. What are we looking at? Let me help you identify that. So that is where the bottom steel, which is here and here. I theorized it initially in one of my videos. I think I already posted it. The steel comes across the deck, the bottom steel, and turns a 90. And if we look at it from a bird's eye view, that's the way it looks like. Flat 90. So here's the wall system, along with the sheet metal back here, the sheet piling back here. And these 90s are turned like this, flat, 12 inches on center, let's call it, right here to here. And there's my defect, a defect of mine, one of them. The rebar is turned, it has a hole. Let's put the rebar there. Here's your hole. Here's your hole. But now I want you to see what they did there. They turned it mostly to 45 degree. Let's say this is the back wall. Most of it, there's the bottom of the rebar and then turned up 45 degrees. Spacing still about 12 inches. But some of that rebar, they just bent and made it fit. And there it is there. And that's its track of the rebar. That's the end of the 90. The 90, the development length was just, put into the wall. It wasn't turned down into the, here's the wall system. It wasn't turned down into the wall like that. It was placed on the wall. Let me get rid of this, clean that up a bit. It was turned on the wall. So here is the wall. It wasn't done like that, right? Here's this. Not like that. But rather, here's the pad on top of it. It was, the bottom steel came over and it was turned up into the concrete. Staying in here, I don't think any rust jacking or anything else came over. I think it had good cover. I based that on the many of these I've seen, and I don't see it fractured out. See, it looks like it's still set. So when this was strained, when it was pulled, I don't know how this piece came off exactly, whether it was through the excavator or not. But when it was pulled, in this case, the rebar unzipped this opening here, and we get to see it. In this case, it was not. It popped it. It's like a rebar pull-out test. It popped it at that location. No other deflection was caused by the deck there, so this rebar here was strained and pulled, and it created a fracture line like that. And you can see it if you zoom in. If you can, let me get rid of some of this stuff here, the debris. So there's your fracture line there, as the rebar was stressing it with the rotation of the rebar. See the hairline fracture, larger than hairline fracture, but right there's your fracture. Okay. So that's just a piece of conduit here. That's just some type of conduit. Let's get rid of this. And I want to show you the next image. So once again, we look back at the wall here, and we see that we have the top steel, bottom steel, and bottom steel, what? Hold on, I'm trying to, I can't move it. Bottom steel would be here and turned up. And it would come across these vertical steel, the vertical steel here, just some giving you a summation again. Really? Okay, there we go. Trying to move this little thing. I'll just move it that way. All right, so why the further proof that top steel exists is we have spacing closer than 12 inches. To me, that would be the top steel also as it slides down. You got some bottom steel and top steel integral with the scratches on the wall. Some of them twisting and becoming one. All right, let's do this. Let's zoom in over here. Remember, your sheet piling is here. So sheet piling, that metal right there. This is the dowel from the support the wall system above. This is a little bit of paste on top of the head there. This is that track I show you again. Look at the track detail as it pulls away. It's very faint, but it's there. All right, that's what it looks like when you pull away. That's what it looks like when rebar was in there. And there's plenty of imagery that shows that tracks were over before they did this demo. There's plenty of imagery that shows the tracks that were up on that wall. We're up on that wall. We're up in this section here. Let's see if I can find you another one. There's one here. Tracks. All right. So this is the vertical steel, though. This is not the steel popping off here as it rotates. That's not the way that breaks. This is the vertical steel here. It's behind the horizontal steel. Let's go from there. No. Oh. Okay, so much for that. I'm not sure where I left off. I had a little defect in my recording. Trust me that the reinforcement is inside here like that. About 12 inches on center. Some of them actually go the other direction also. It's buried in concrete. That gives you a development length. And perhaps some of them for the top is going, actually go that way too, or go the other way to get the development left. They create almost like a hook and the rebar reinforcement. It seems like it would behave the same if you had some rebar going down and up over like this. It would give it a little more securement anchoring down. Well, here's that rebar there, and it was just it's more like a dowel. So I think it's more like let me get rid of some stuff here. I think it's more like this, and that's just your wall system. And as we saw with the other imagery, the wall system has a rebar close to the front, as you see over there by the parking garage area. And so there's your dowel. Then these guys come over and they go down on an angle, the top steel, and the bottom steel comes over and it comes up like that, staying inside the concrete. Okay, so I messed up again. I didn't have the recording on. Let's do this. So here's the wall above. I want you to think of these little points here. That's where the bottom steel would be, the little holes. And I believe they're turned up this direction. It could be turned up the other direction also, meaning this direction for development length. So it looks a little like that. The steel goes above our heads and out towards the deck. And let me see if I can get you a little more better detail in that. So let's go like this, and above our heads. Now there's some top steel here also. I believe there's top steel, as I showed you in the beginning of this video. Perhaps what I'm observing with these tracks in there is the top steel, and maybe the top steel is embedded, and then this comes across to the deck, right? To the deck where above our heads. And when this deck pulls down, the top steel is in tension. As it rotates down, the deck rotating down, it from the top, from this section here, zippers it down. So zip, 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 unzips it. As it unzips it all the way over in this section here, let me do the removal of that. Now let's make it clear. So as it unzips these sections here, the rotation is this direction, capacity. It's anchored from here, from the wall system to this floor, into the slab. This doesn't move. Your top wall doesn't move because there's no forces acting on it. The rotation of the deck is pulling down, and it's pinned. The bottom, it can't rotate up to move the wall because it's pinned by the steel that the studs that come up. Okay, the dowels that come up. It's pinned there. It allows the rotation and fracturing, giving us this beautiful fracture line and rotation down. Some of the rebar that was put in that wall might have been back a little bit further, right there. Whereas some of the rebar for the top steel were probably put in that plane where we see the clean line. So just because it's clean and we don't see holes for the top steel does not mean the top steel is not there. This also gives me my what I observed on the deck, some of the concrete that's on the deck. As it rotates over and falls down, it slingshots it or catapults it back onto the deck. Catapult. So I don't even know how to spell catapult. Catapults it back onto the deck. Back onto the deck, and you get the pieces of concrete that came from here, literally on top of the deck now, post collapse, and while the deck is still up here at this location. So not corrupted by the building guys, as far as I know. The data is not corrupted by them. It's so far in the deck. If you did take some exploratory looking, like preliminarily, just exploratory, you wouldn't take that material and throw it back maybe 15 feet. You would just, take a look at it and put it back down. If you were so inclined to walk up to that edge, because you would think you would fall over, you wouldn't quite figure out where you are. So the some of the steel, we see the scratch marks above are what we're concerned with. Down here is just the machinery did this. Above it implies that that there's some rubbing here, and then a settlement here. So it'd be probably an impact here, and then scratching down the wall and coming to rest here. So a slight removal of materials, very slight, because you can still see the brushing the materials. Here we see a total removal, right here, total removal, and here it's faint and a light brush. Over here we actually see two sections of rebar. Let me get rid of that. Two sections of rebar reinforcement that came in contact. I would say that would be the spacing of it. I'd need a better detail of it, but that could be the top steel, or let's see, boom, boom, boom. That's the bottom steel, I believe. Why do I believe it's the bottom steel? Because remember, we came in contact here and then scratched down. As soon as we came in contact, we start getting scratch marks. If it was a top steel, that wouldn't work for me, but the bottom steel would scratch and drive down to where it came to rest. So that would be the top steel. Correction again, bottom steel. That's doing the scratching there, and there's the spacing of it, parallel. Presents as parallel. All right. Hopefully this works for you. This is good data for you. So a little bit of the same thing here, but imagine the steel being in here like this, top steel, and perhaps the bottom steel overlapping, and that, the little odd configuration where, if we're looking at the back wall, it looks like two pieces of steel like that, kind of close together. In reality, one's a bottom steel and one's a top steel, and they just happen to leave these impressions like this. I want you to think of these, the vertical steel coming up, this steel right here, that we're looking at, literally the steel. I want you to think of it being engulfed or somehow through spacing every now and then, and specifically right about where we are, the getting behind these this integral steel that's in that capacity. Again, I do not think these are hooks like that. What was called for. I just got a bias against that. I have a bias against that because I would think that this would be the tail end that we see here, the approximately 12 inches out the wall, that it would have failed and exposed these. This is about to be 12 inches, and these look like nubs, and they look like they're to me cone shaped. Let's just necking that this part here, when the rebar goes into tension, gets kind of coney sometimes, and then you'll see a bright fracture. I wish I had closer imagery to verify that. And it looks like they have been terminated at the tip. See the white paste on top? It's so consistent with being right about the same elevation. I don't have all these breaking that way in my mind here. This one's got a little more turn. Zoom out, zoom in. Hold on. And this one over here to the right. See, I don't have this as this one here. That tip. I have that as just, it's paste, but I have it as standing up. I don't have it as the 90s. I mean, what are the odds are that all the 90s stayed in place, that they were like this? And this being the deeper end of it, and this is the 12, about approximately 12 inches out, the 90s, that all of them sheared there, and they left some white paste over there. I'm looking at those heads. They just don't remind me of a elongation error. This one's that one might. The tip, it's so hard to tell. I'm getting a lot of confusion in my eyeballs here. Very hard to tell on that one. All right, so I believe there's rebar that was behind here, and that's what pulled it out. And then you see the concrete as it pulled out, maybe the top steel like that, flex this over, bent it over, and that rebar is here. If we go back to the wall to the far right, we see this rebar that goes all the way down by the vehicles. It goes down. There's some rebar in there. I definitely don't think they made rebar from the ground up and then turned their 90s here, and we're looking at the end of the 90s before they turn. So that's my bias position on those, and I'm going to end the video. Don't want to confuse you. You might have to go back to the beginning of this video again to get the better data of what I'm talking about. The tracks, the track. So that would be a track here. See the track left behind, the groove, as you pull the rebar forward. They all seem about the same elevation. I don't have the necking like that. It looks like it just released. I have the top steel being a rotating steel that was able to cause this to fracture without moving the wall. All right, that's it. Love you guys, and terminate video. Bye. And there we go.